Over the last few weeks, we've been meditating on giving in the 21st century. Giving has changed. And does that mean we as a church change along with it? Do we alter how we give and the methodologies we use? We've looked at the fact that giving is an expression of worship. And because of that, it's from the heart being moved by God. And also, not only is it from the heart being moved by God, it manifests clearly delineated characteristics. And it is sacrificial, it is generous, and it is joyful. But all that is positive. I want to look at, as we continue to contemplate this over the next few weeks, I also want to look at, I hate to say this, the negative side of things as well. Some types of giving are really not expressions of worship. You don't have to show your hands, but have you ever been in a situation where you've been asked to be in a $100 giving line? You don't have to show your hands. Those who can give $300 line up over here, and those who can only give $10, you stay in your seat. I don't know if you've been in those type of situations before, but there are some types of giving used in the church that are just not biblical. They don't rise to the level of being an expression of worship. And so I want to just meditate with this for just a few weeks with you. The first thing I want you to see, you can write this down if you like, and that is, if worship is an expression of, if giving is an expression of worship, and there are some types of false worship, there must be some types of false giving. Makes sense. There is false worship. Jesus says in John 4:24 that the Father is seeking those who worship him in spirit and in truth. So those that don't worship him in spirit and truth are worshiping falsely. Exodus 20 verses 4 and 5 indicate that when God is to be worshiped, he's not to be worshiped through images that we build. In other words, that's false worship. And so if there's false worship of God, there must be false types of giving. I want to look at one type of false giving with you this morning. Now turn to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6. And notice what Jesus says here in this text. He says, "Beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. Otherwise you have no reward with your Father who is in heaven. When therefore you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that you may be honored by men. Truly I say to you, they have the reward in full. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your alms may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you." Doesn't it make sense that if God wants you to be a secret giver to yourself, that $100, $300 lines in churches is not true worship? I mean, you're really asking people to violate what the Bible teaches. You're really asking people to disobey God. Does God identify types of giving? Sure he does. In the Old Testament, we looked at it before, when God asks them to build his tabernacle, he tells them the types of things to bring. But notice, God didn't tell them the amount to bring. We're really infringing on people's consciences when we tell them an amount. We're infringing on their conscience. They're to worship God in their heart. They're to love God with their whole heart. And that should express itself in giving that is generous, sacrificial, and joyful. Don't get trapped in the lines in churches to give certain amounts as if you're closer to God because you do that. That's not biblical. We want to give to God in a way that expresses our worship of him. Keep those things in mind as the ushers prepare to receive our offering at this time.